Sometimes what we need is a soulful song that can bring us all together, heal our hearts. But in times like these, we might need a song like this. I still want to learn to play piano. I could be practicing every day. I keep saying I'd love to start running. I'd be in shape if I had my way. But there were always aliens to think about, Illuminati and the puppet state. Chemtrails poisoning the populace. No use trying, it's much too late. Big crock conspiracy, wacko shit. Deadlock, truth I never will admit. It's only an excuse to quit. Conspiracy, wacko shit. I spend my days hiding in the basement, isolated as I can get. I sink down deep into my wormhole, the dark side of the internet. I might have liked to drive across America, camping out in the old RV. I'm too scared of Q and on and on and on. They'll hack my brain with the new 5G. Big crock conspiracy, wacko shit. Deadlock, the truth I never will admit. Gives me an excuse to quit. Conspiracy, wacko shit. Fist clenched, strangling my iPad, apocalyptically entertained. I'm sweat drenched, paranoid, it's this bad, pure adrenaline in my veins. Least I finally see I have no choices, 'cause everyone's controlled by the deep state. Long as we believe in unseen forces, we never even try to change our fate. Big crock conspiracy, wacko shit. Deadlock, the truth I never will admit. It's only an excuse to quit. Conspiracy, wacko shit. It's only an excuse to quit. Conspiracy, wacko shit. Yeah, I feel better. I hope you do.
Greetings and salutations, friends, and welcome back to Truthseekers. Happy to be here with you tonight, and very excited about tonight's guest. However, I'm not sure if we got our signals crossed, but he is still not here in our green room. So I'm going to begin tonight talking a little bit about him, his incredible family and family connections, his book, and more, while we wait to see if he is going to make it. And I hope that he still will. But I have not heard back from him. Sent him several messages here on Twitter. So who is John William Warner IV? Very interesting character that I have been following for quite some time. John is a writer, a gentleman farmer, a hay farmer, in fact, in Virginia, whose passion for history, vintage cars, and the unsung heroes of World War II has inspired two large-scale creative ventures. That would be a DVD documentary series on the early bootlegging days of NASCAR. That's right, he's also a NASCAR race car driver and gearhead. And this documentary covers the golden era of NASCAR and his recent historical novel titled Little Anton. Warner is the son of a retired Senator John W. Warner III, Republican from Virginia. who was also the former Secretary of the Navy and Chairman of the Armed Services Committee. Very powerful Senator John W. Warner, who has been at the crossroads of so many historical events. And I'm a student of history, so I've known all about his father. When I saw John come into sort of the conspiracy land space, I was very intrigued because of his family's history. Because not only is his father, John W. Warner, the former Secretary of Navy, Senator, and Chairman of the Armed Services Committee, but his mother was Catherine Mellon, who you may recall the name Mellon. Yes, a relative of Chris Mellon. John is actually the cousin of Christopher Mellon. And his mother, Catherine Mellon, was the daughter of philanthropist Paul Mellon, who was well known in the Army, OSS, CIA, and more. So John grew up in a sort of wacky military family and had a seat of many of the most historically significant tables, both in the worlds of the military, corporate, and intelligence. And this led to his insatiable quest to find and reveal the hidden truths behind historical world events. John would describe himself as a gearhead, and he has spent most of his adult life quenching his thirst for knowledge about race cars, first as a professional Grand Am IMSA and American Le Mans Series racing driver, a plodding middle-of-the-man pack behind the wheel of a Corvette GT1 and Porsche GT3R back in 1995 to 2001. Later, John was researching the Southern history of the sport for his NASCAR DVD series titled The Golden Era of NASCAR and the Wendell Scott story, and you can find those on YouTube. John has recently finished his first book, the first in a series of 3. The first is titled Little Anton, and it's the first of the series. John is an avid researcher of revisionist or alternative history, both ancient and recent, and he began writing this book series during a 2-year-long recovery from a racing car accident. And his book is very interesting in that it is a fictional book. However, it contains a great deal of historical perspective of real-world events mixed in, which I found to be incredibly interesting. And his extensive research for Little Anton evolved into a gripping historical narrative that reveals hidden truths about technological advancements, about top-secret German nonlinear physics, and many prominent leaders active in the World War II era, including Adolf Hitler, Heinrich Himmler, physicist Walter Gerlach, Ferdinand Porsche, the man behind the Porsche race car, sports cars, and Winston Churchill, among many, many others. His book is part love story and part satire. The book centers on Hitler's use of Porsche's brilliant engineering mind to build the world's fastest and most advanced machines, and the occultism of the SS to further new advanced weapon systems of the Nazi regime and the so-called Wunderwaffe or wonder weapons. He and his wife, Tiba, split their time between their Washington, D.C. area residence and their humble Virginia hay farm, where he is finishing the sequel to Little Anton, which is titled Lion, Tiger, Bear. They also host a biannual deer hunt for veterans and a picnic for wounded veterans with the Virginia Wildlife Foundation. So he's an incredibly interesting guy, and we can get into some of the history of his father, who has just been at the forefront of so much of history. John Warner III was an American lawyer and politician who served as the United States Secretary of the Navy, and that was from 1972 to 1974. And he was a 5-term Republican U.S. Senator from Virginia from 1979 until 2009. His father, John Warner, served as chairman of the Senate Armed Services Committee from 1999 to 2000, and again from 2003 to 2007. He has served under multiple U.S. presidents in the United States government in one form or another. He has also served as the chair of the Senate Rules Committee from 1995 to 1999. John's father, John Warner III, was a veteran of the Second World War and the Korean Wars, and he was one of 5 World War II veterans serving in the Senate at the time of his retirement. In 2008, he did not seek re-election, and after leaving the Senate, he worked for a law firm of Hogan Lovells, where he had previously been employed before joining the United States Department of Defense as the Undersecretary of the Navy. And I find John's interest in UFOs and conspiracy topics very interesting because his father, served as Undersecretary of the Navy, later Secretary of the Navy during the presidency of Richard Nixon in 1969. And as we all know, for some reason, the Navy, for whatever reason, has largely been credited with having charge of the UFO file and the UFO secrets. This is incredibly interesting to me. And his father, certainly being the head of the Navy, if there is a UFO file, his father would certainly have some knowledge of the UFO, the government's top secret UFO programs. So he served under President Nixon in 1969, and Warner's 2002 re-election is the most recent election in which a Republican won a U.S. Senate seat in Virginia. It has been all Democrats since then. His father was born February 18th, 1927 in Washington, D.C. to Martha Budd and John William Warner Jr., which would be, there's a long line of John William Warners, which is interesting. Our John is John William Warner IV. But his father, the third, grew up in the district, in Washington, D.C., where he attended elite St. Albans School before graduating from Woodrow Wilson High School in 1945 and then serving in World War II. He enlisted in the United States Navy during World War II in January 1945, shortly before his 18th birthday. And John's father served until the following year, leaving as petty officer 3rd class. He went to college at Washington and Lee University, where he was a member of the Beta Theta Pi fraternity, graduating in 1949, and then he entered the University of Virginia Law School. So his father also joined in the United States Marine Corps in October 1950, which I find that incredibly interesting, how somebody could go and do their time in the Navy, get out, and then join another armed service. But he did. Interesting guy. And he joined in October 1950 after the outbreak of the Korean War and served in Korea as a ground aircraft maintenance officer with the 1st Marine Aircraft Wing. He continued in the Marine Corps Reserves after the war, eventually reaching the rank of captain. Later resumed his studies, taking courses at George Washington University before receiving his law degree from UVA in 1953. And that year, he became a law clerk to Chief Judge E. Barrett Prettyman of the United States Court of Appeals. And in 1956, John's dad, John Warner III, became an assistant U.S. attorney. Later in 1960, he entered private law practice and joined Hogan and Hartson, now Hogan Lovells. In 1960, in the 1960 United States presidential election, he served as an aide to Vice President Richard Nixon's campaign team, and of course would later serve under President Nixon. And he would serve as Secretary of the Navy. After giving substantial funds and time to Nixon's successful presidential campaign in 1968, John Warner III was appointed Undersecretary of the Navy in the Nixon administration in February of 1969. And then in May of 1972, he succeeded John H. Chaffee as Secretary of the Navy. the man in charge of the entire United States Navy serving under President Nixon. Later, Warner was appointed by President Gerald Ford as delegate to the law of the sea talks, and he negotiated the U.S.-Soviet incidents at sea agreement, which became sort of a cause célèbre for detente doves in the U.S.-Soviet relations situation. Later, he was appointed by Gerald Ford to the post of Director of American Revolution Bicentennial Administration. He later became a U.S. Senator and probably the most well-known senator from Virginia. So we see where John Williams IV's perhaps intense interest in history came from. His father, having done all of these things in history, later became a very well-known senator. And that was following President Ford's defeat. Warner began to consider political office for himself, and then he entered politics himself in the 1978 Virginia election for U.S. Senate. And despite the publicity, this is interesting, his father was at one time married to Elizabeth Taylor, and despite the publicity of being Elizabeth Taylor's husband and large amounts of money Warner used in his campaign for the nomination, he finished second in the state Republican Party. However, later, he managed to win the seat. His committee memberships as a senator included Environmental and Public Works Committee, Senate Committee on Health, Education, Labor, and Pensions, and the Senate Select Committee on Intelligence as the chairman of Senate Armed Services Committee. Warner III has been at the crossroads of history many times. He was considered quite moderate, especially in comparison to most Republican senators from the South, but he was among the minority of Republicans to support some gun control laws. And he voted for the Brady Bill, and in 1999 was one of the 5 Republicans to vote to close the so-called gun show loophole. While Warner voted against the 1994 assault weapons ban, he co-sponsored efforts by Senator Dianne Feinstein to reauthorize the ban in 2004 and 2005. Warner III, John's father, also supported Roe versus Wade decision, establishing abortion rights, and supported embryonic stem cell research, although he received high ratings from the anti-abortion groups because he voted in favor of many abortion restrictions. On June 15, 2004, Warner was among the minority of his party to vote to expand hate laws to include sexual orientation as a protected category. He also supported a constitutional amendment banning same-sex marriage, but he raised concerns about the most recent federal marriage amendment as being too restrictive, as it would potentially ban civil unions as well. So, you know, we have here a man whose father is steeped in history and at the crossroads of many historical events. John Warner IV has an intense interest in history and finding the truth and sort of the causal effects behind many of the greatest stories of history. He has an intense history of World War II, intense interest in the history of World War II, and how the Nazis were doing all of this advanced scientific research. We've all heard these stories of the wonder weapons, the Nazi Bell, the Nazi Honeybu, and other craft, the repulsion engine, and more. One second, I'm just going to share my screen. And we have here scenes and images of Nazi UFOs. Now, these purported Nazi UFOs have been largely discussed in conspiracy land. I'm still on the fence because while there is some anecdotal evidence and drawings and plans and testimony of people, some of the evidence of these things came from European tabloid newspapers after the war. So some of the information is a bit suspect about these things, but I've still had an intense interest in these things. And we've heard these stories of Nazi UFOs in Antarctica and other places. Apparently, some people believe that the Nazis had an Antarctic base uh, in Antarctica, which would house these Nazi saucers. And we have stories of Admiral Byrd apparently coming into contact with Nazi flying saucers during his investigation of Antarctica, his expedition, I should say, into Antarctica. Interesting. These are interesting stories, but I'm always concerned with the sourcing of the stories and the validity, right, of the stories. But John William Warner IV has done a lot more research into these claims and these stories than I have. So I was very interested in trying to speak to him about these stories of Nazi flying saucers and uh, all of these stories, the incredible stories of the Foo Fighters, which some believe were Nazi secret weapons that were sort of some sort of plasma-based device that was designed to be sort of aimed at American and Allied powers bombers, and apparently some believe that the plasma-based devices were electromagnetic and designed to disrupt the electrical system of the Allied bombers coming in to bomb German targets. John has done extensive research into much of this, and as our title tonight suggests, John is interested in some of the wilder side of conspiracy land. In following him, I've noticed there seems to be no stories too wild for him. He's interested in the secret space program. He's interested in the, I suppose, the experiencer movement, the alien abductees stories. He is interested in strange historical conspiracies and more. I would like to show you his latest book here, which is very, very interesting. And we're going to read portions of that. And his book is called Little Anton, Historical Novel, Complete Series. And this is the novel, the first in a 3-part series. It says, dive into the smart, sexy spy thriller set in the 1930s European Grand Prix racing when Porsche's secret advanced technology sparks international espionage. Will the madcap British pilot, spy lady Bea, and her handsome Bavarian lover, race driver Lutz Becker, find Porsche's top secret designs before Adolf Hitler exploits them? Be inspired by the brazen adventures of Lady Bea in this historical fiction series as she endures both harsh training to infiltrate Himmler's occult-driven SS, races to locate and apply covert technology in World War II, and exposes the secret plotting for material gain by corporate and political leaders around the world. The Little Anton series will continue with the forthcoming sequel, Lion, Tiger, Bear. This mystery thriller is set amid the Desert War of 1942-1943, where the hunt is on for secret Nazi SS mining operation and aircraft base in Iraq directly linked to Germany's multiple atomic bomb programs. Part love story and part satire, the book masterfully interweaves a fictional adventure within factual repartee, revealing in greater detail why Adolf Hitler tasked his personal hero, Professor Ferdinand Porsche, and his brilliant engineering mind to build the world's fastest, most incredible race cars and potent military machines. The book tracks the life of Dr. Ferdinand Porsche while Hitler rises to power. Porsche and his family are pacifists, but like many other industrialist families, they get caught up in Germany's economic miracle during the Great Depression and its aftermath. With Hitler's patronage, Porsche becomes Germany's heralded Reich designer, and Porsche created the Volkswagen Beetle and Auto Union's futuristic Grand Prix racing cars, which later evolved into the Audi car brand after World War II. Along with Dr. Porsche, the central characters are fictional Lady Beatrice, Sunderland, Bia, an irrelevant and naughty British aristocrat, and Lutz Becker, a dashing young Bavarian race car driver from quite humble origins. These two madcap star-crossed opposites eventually intertwine by the time the war breaks out, the attraction as inevitable as the fearsome conflict itself. Lady Bia, a cynical, freewheeling, cold-hearted daredevil pilot who emulates feminist aviation. I'm sorry, what is that word? Aviatrices, Amelia Earhart, Amy Johnson, and Beryl Markham, is the daughter of Lord Briggs Sunderland, a tortured veteran of the Great War and close friend and confidant of Winston Churchill, Bia's maternal granduncle. Bia undergoes harsh SIS training to become a British spy and is sent to Germany to gain intelligence on clandestine German rearmament. Lutz Becker, a young member of the National Socialist Motor Corps motorcycle division, gains Porsche's patronage and becomes a proud auto racer in international Grand Prix competitions, Hitler and Goebbels' prize propaganda coup. The brazen adventures of Lady Bia and Lutz take readers through a grim scope of early wartime destruction, the insanity of Himmler's occult-driven SS, and the secret plotting for material gain by corporate and political leaders from around the world. The Little Anton series will continue with the forthcoming sequel titled Lion, Tiger, Bear. This mystery thriller is set amid the Desert War of 1942-43, where the hunt is on for secret Nazi SS mining operation and the aircraft base in Iraq directly linked to Germany's multiple atomic bomb programs. And it's interesting to me that John has sort of weaved his own historical research into this novel. So it's a fictional novel, but along with it, there is an incredible history of Porsche and Hitler and Himmler and the Nazis' attempt to create their own nuclear weapon. Lots here, and interesting kind of a book. And he continues along with the series. I want to take a moment to thank someone here. I saw we had a super chat that I missed. Let me see if we can't find that. 1 second, friends. There we go. Collie Armstrong with a kind and generous $1.99 or £1.99 super sticker. Thank you for your kindness, your generation, and your support. This is a viewer-supported show, so if you'd like to support the show, there is a money button down there, and you too can send a super chat and support the show. 1 second, I'm just going to check back in with John, who is still not here, and I'm not sure that he's going to make it. So we may have to call this one at part 1 and see why we got our wires crossed and do a part 2 when he can actually make it to the show for the interview. I'm just going to tell him I'm going to have to call it. I've filled all the time I can. And I apologize to my friends. I thought it was very clear, and we're on the same time zone. He said Tuesday, 7 p.m. I said done. And yeah, so, it's Tuesday at 7 p.m. But still no John. I'm hoping that there's nothing serious going on, because I don't think he's the kind of person that just no show and not reply to messages. I couldn't tell you what is happening right now. So I suppose if he doesn't show in the next few minutes, we will call this a part 1, giving you some background into John, his family, and more. Interesting that John is the cousin of Christopher Mellon, but has been quite critical of Christopher Mellon and more. I wanted to talk to him because he has some insight into this game being played, and I believe it is a game being played by some of the characters in Conspiracy Land, like Lou Elizondo, Christopher Mellon, and more. He has been very, very critical of them. But interestingly, he's also very supportive of other people that I don't find credible, like Stephen Greer. But again, it's fine that he and I can agree to disagree on some topics because we agree on many others. I've been following his interviews for quite some time with great interest. I guess I just find it interesting that somebody of his family history, and his family is one of the richest families in the world, and he talks about that. And I have joked with him that him and his family are the Illuminati. Kind of had a fun joke back and forth that I was very impressed that I would actually be able to interview a member of the Illuminati in the form of John William Warner IV. Maybe he's busy with Illuminati business and could not make it here today. I'm really not sure what's going on. I've sent him, I don't know, 6 or 7 messages via Twitter DM without reply. And we couldn't have gotten the time zone wrong because he's in either Virginia or Washington, D.C., which are both the same time as me, 7 p.m. So I always say this, folks, you get the show with warts and all. This is the first time I've had a no show with no reply. So I'm not, I don't really know quite what to do next, except that we could just table this for now, call it a part 1. We have given you some historical background. Rich E.S. asks, is he related to the current Senator Warner? No, it's interesting that the current senator from Virginia is named Warner, but is no relation to either John Warner III, the most famous senator from Virginia, or to John William Warner IV, our guest tonight, or was going to be our guest tonight, Callie Armstrong, with another kind and generous $1.49 super sticker. Thank you for your kindness, your generosity, and your support of the show. So I suppose what we're going to do is we're going to take a short musical break. I'm going to try to message John again and see if he is going to indeed, make it here. Usually when a guest is late, there's some technical issue and they message me and say, my webcam's not working, my microphone, I don't know. But we've gotten no reply from him. I'm not quite sure what the issue is or why he has not been here to do the interview at the agreed upon time. But these things happen, friends. I don't know what's going on. So I guess, I could also talk about some current drama, but I'd rather not. But I can tell you that there is an awful lot of people that are crying over me, right? Crying over me, crying over my show, crying over guests I've had they didn't like. It's so funny to me that people will take the time to send me really nasty, venomous messages about a guest that they hate, right? They just hate a certain guest. And sometimes it's not even what the guest is talking about or what the guest is known for, but it's some personal beef or something like that. And yeah, I get the chatter, and I know that there are some other show hosts that was crying over me last week, and they've been crying over me, and they'll continue to be crying over me. I don't know what to say except show me on this doll where Stephen Cambion hurt you on the internet. For people to spend hours of their life crying about me on their show or on the internet, or spending all of this time sending me nasty messages about a guest you don't like. We have hosted, since I began my first show and then this show, we have hosted literally hundreds of guests. And I guess I could also say that occasionally somebody will send me something and say, did you know that 18 years ago or 8 years ago, your guest said this crazy thing? And I go, there is no way for any show host to know every single thing that their guest has ever said, or any ideas that guest has, put forth or espoused as their belief system. I can't be responsible for every single thing that a guest has ever said, done. We do our best here to get good quality guests. Even as we have some of the more mainstream popular show hosts literally threatening people not to come on our show with consequences. I guess that's a story for another time. But what I guess I mean is, if you're so butthurt that you got to cry over me and my show, especially talking trash on yours, then because it's over not liking a guest, right? And I've had hundreds of guests. I'm sorry you didn't like one of them, right? Or a couple of them. It just it reminds me, I listen to many different podcasts and shows, live shows. I like interview shows, so I listen to Joe Rogan. By the way, Joe Rogan had a bang up. Go look on Twitter. He's trending on Twitter right now, and I said something about that, saying, I don't understand the world that I live in anymore. Things have gotten really crazy. It's just gotten really, really crazy because um, now I live in a world where the corporate media all lies to me, and my government lies to me, and Big Pharma lies to me, and Big Pharma and the media. Big Pharma owns the corporate media. Watch any corporate media show, they're filled with ads from Big Pharma. They sell drugs. That's what corporate media sells mostly. Almost all the commercials for some of the news programs, you'll notice, are funded by Big Pharma, filled with commercials from Big Pharma. So is it any wonder that Big Pharma and the media collude together to lie to me, to you, and to all of us? And somehow I have to get the truth about the current health crisis from a comedian. And I just, folks, I don't know why this is okay. So, yeah, I would highly recommend that you check out Joe Rogan's latest podcast if you want to be shocked about what we've been told, what's not true about what we've been told, and how we have, I believe, been manipulated. But back to people crying over me. I thought I would do something special for them, right? I thought, if you're going to cry over me, I should do something special since you're taking the time to cry over me, right? Since you're taking the time to cry over me, I want to reciprocate. You've given me and my show your time and energy, taking all that time to cry about me on your show, right? So I thought I could do something for them. So I would like to dedicate tonight's musical guest to all those people who are crying over me and my show. We're going to take a short musical break while I do one last check-in with our so far AWOL guest who hasn't shown today. And I sincerely apologize for this. I'm sure there's something going on or he would be here. He just doesn't strike me as a flaky kind of a person. We agreed to the time and date. So I'm not sure what's going on with him. I'm going to take a moment to check in with him while we visit tonight's musical guest. And tonight's musical guest is dedicated. It's dedicated to you, all of you people crying over me. We'll be right back, folks. Okay, we are back, folks. So I've messaged John Warner, William Warner the Fourth. We have still not heard back from him. I'm going to take some comments and questions from the live chat. We can, I suppose, talk about anything for a little while here. And I apologize once again for the guest not being here. So I sincerely apologize. So somebody didn't like that version of the song, and Pix says corrects. Orbison is the man, always was. I said nobody, I believe, can do that song better than him, though I do like this girl's version of the song. And yeah, it is what it is. And I'm not sure there's some kind of drama going on in the live chat, but generally sometimes there is. So I always mention this, folks. You get the show warts and all. This is the first time that I've ever had it fill time for that long. Not sure, like I said, what happened because we scheduled this and he has not replied to any of my messages. Yeah, so I don't know. And I'm not going to speculate. I will let you guys know what happened if and when I hear from him. Until then, I suppose we're going to pack it in here. We'll call this a part one, and hopefully he'll be able to reschedule. But I believe this is the second reschedule already. So, yeah, it is what it is, though. Rebecca Turner says, I liked it, Stephen. Well, I like it because it's dedicated to all those people crying over me and my show, right? Pick says, maybe Church squeezed him. Yeah, I don't know. I know he's very friendly with Dr. Stephen Greer, who I've been very critical of as well. And that thought occurred to me. Spooky says, I'm late. What did I miss? Well, we filled time for as long as we could, but Mr. John William Warner, the fourth, hasn't been here and hasn't replied to my messages. So I'm not sure what's going on. Yes, I did, actually. I've been catching up with dark journalists lately. Comp Lazard asks, did you watch the DJ 114 episode last week? What's your take on all those CIA connections? I found it very interesting. And I've always found the CIA's connections to everything very interesting, right? Because we have what is essentially the CIA's known and accepted infiltration into the American media, foreign media, and much, much more. What is the CIA doing employing U.S. media representatives, right? What is the CIA doing employing foreign media personalities? And why is it just acceptable that the CIA is able to pay people to put out the messages that they want out in the public sphere? I think that should be illegal. And just so you know, it was once illegal for the United States government to use disinformation on its own citizens, but Obama changed that. So thanks, Obama. Thanks to Obama, the United States government is now legally allowed to use disinformation campaigns against its own citizens. Spooky asking, did you announce Thursday's show? No, I have not yet. Thursday's show is going to be our expose on Billy Carson and his girlfriend and chief of operations. We have covered Billy Carson before, and Billy Carson is right now running what I believe to be an illegal car raffle. He's also running what I can only term as a very shady invest in my company, buy shares in my company thing. It's very problematic, and we have all the receipts and all of the paperwork about his girlfriend and chief of operations being a convicted felon. So not only is Billy Carson a convicted felon, but his girlfriend and his company's chief of operations is a convicted felon. And I don't know about you, but if I was going to invest in a company, I think that I should be allowed to know that the guy who is the face of the company, Billy Carson, and the person who is supposed to be the company's chief of operations running the company, Billy Carson's girlfriend, are both convicted felons who were both convicted on fraud charges. And it appears that Elizabeth Hoekstra's rap sheet is longer than Billy's. She's got more arrests, more convictions than Billy Carson. And she's running a company which is right now running car raffle, what I believe to be a car raffle scam, and running invest in my company shady things. So we're going to cover all that on Thursday night. Yeah, and Dow Jones Mueller asked, what was he going to discuss? Well, I believe we were going to discuss a lot of history and alternative history and conspiracy land craziness, like Nazi UFOs and the secret space program and things of that nature. Yeah, and I still have not heard back from him. So, we'll take a few more comments and questions. All I could do is apologize for this. And I sincerely apologize for him not being here. Unidentified S4 says the CIA controls the media. Well, I definitely believe that. Many people have suggested that Anderson Cooper is he interned at the CIA. Did you know that? I believe that is correct. Let me just fact check myself. I don't want to give you inaccurate information. I'm just going to Google Anderson Cooper CIA connection. Yeah, he was a CIA intern. Oh, look at this. This is great. This is great. So Anderson Cooper did his internship at the CIA, right? That's great. Yeah, so he has admitted that he did his internship at the CIA. And this guy is on a major news network right now. But there's nothing to see here, right? There's nothing strange about the fact that this news anchor was a CIA guy, right? I don't understand this world that I live in anymore. It appears that Collie Armstrong with another kind and generous 99 cent is still cents in England, right? I think so. Yeah. And Randall Hill says CIA hires pedophiles. Yeah, they just got busted for just letting pedophiles go. Like, oh, are you looking at kitty porn all day long when you're supposed to be working on a who's after all, too, like who are these pedophiles? Are they that dumb? Right? Like I'm on a company government computer and I'm going to look at kitty porn and download kitty porn onto my CIA laptop. These people deserve to be arrested, but apparently a bunch of them were not. Over fears that if they were forced to testify in court, they may reveal state secrets or, things like that. So they just let the pedophiles go. They didn't prosecute any of them. And it's a lot of them, friends. It's a lot of them. What are you talking? I don't even know what you're talking about. I want you to unpack that claim, Stephen. Not saying you're wrong. What was the specific act you referred to? I think I know, but let's see. I don't know what you're referring to there, Pick, so you have to be more specific. I thought we were talking about the CIA's role in the media. And it's been proven that many news anchors have proven ties to the CIA, like Anderson Cooper was a CIA intern while he was in college. Very cozy relationship, right? Carson is pretty sketch. I believe that is true. And Brando's mentioning that Porsche built the people's car, the Volkswagen. Yes, Hitler wanted a people's car, a car that was simple to build, simple to maintain, that anyone could own because it would be incredibly inexpensive. And that turned out to be the Volkswagen Beetle. My brother is a incredible, he's a mechanic, by the way, but my brother is an incredible mechanic, actually. He's a first-class mechanic for SEPTA, which is the Southeastern Transportation Authority in Pennsylvania, the bus lines, the public transportation, all the public buses. So he's a diesel mechanic, and he does engine rebuilds, all the first-class stuff. But anyway, growing up, my brother was a rabid Volkswagen fan. He had Volkswagen Beetles, Volkswagen Carmen Gias. I believe he got a Volkswagen Thing. Look that up. That's a crazy car. Actually, the Volkswagen Carmen Ghia was mine, but I bought it off of somebody really cheap, and I wasn't a mechanic. My father was a mechanic. My brother's a mechanic. My father was actually a helicopter mechanic during Vietnam. I just never I don't have those skills. So I bought this Carmen Ghia off of one of my brother's friends, and then I never worked on it. I never got it running. I never did anything with it. So I just gave it to him and he restored it. And my brother also had a whole bunch of hippie vans, the Volkswagen Vanagons and Volkswagen camper vans. He was a huge fan of Volkswagen. Not so much Porsche. He liked the Volkswagens. But of course, Porsche was responsible for the Volkswagen line of cars. And I don't know. I was never a huge fan, but I love the Carmen Ghia because that thing looks like it looked like a Corvette or something, and it was the one that I had was from 1968, and I bought it in my I don't know, late teens, early 20s, but I was never able to do anything with it, so I gave it to my brother. Yeah. Oh, Haley says, yes, mixing some good old politics in this show. We know a right-wing, God-fearing Catholic Stephen praised the trash. Well, I don't know what to tell you. I don't consider myself, and I'm not a registered either Republican or Democrat. Last I recall, I think I'm a registered libertarian, and that would be little L libertarian if you want to be specific. But if you want to, I don't know if that's a disparaging comment or not. It's hard to tell, right? Right wing, God fearing Catholic Stephen. I grew up Catholic, and the one thing I'll say about growing up Catholic is that I grew up poor, very poor. But I had the benefit of a Catholic education, and I wouldn't trade that for anything. Despite what I think about Catholicism and how I was brainwashed, and besides the brainwashing, the Catholics are incredible educators, and at one time they would go into poor neighborhoods and found schools, and for very inexpensive. I think my mother paid $30 a month when I was in grade school and kindergarten. But anyway, very inexpensive. They provided very inexpensive, really, really good education for poor inner city folks. And for that, I'll always be grateful because I know people that grew up in the same neighborhood as me that got to high school and could barely read because the public education system was so terrible. I value the Catholic education that I got. As far as being right wing, maybe I am right wing leaning. I'm certainly not left wing or woke leaning. I find that to be a joke. And as far as politics, we don't really talk about politics here. I tend to avoid that because it's a hot button issue. And no matter what you say, half the people are going to agree with you and half the people are going to hate you or disagree with you. So we try to avoid that. Space Exposure says ufology is nothing but grifter ex-cons and future cons. Yeah, I apologize for that. And I'm still checking in and still no message from John William Warner IV. So, I'm sorry to disappoint everybody. I know everybody was looking forward to this. Bob Birkin says, more and more I'm starting to have faith only in you and Gufon. Things have changed a lot. Yeah, good for you. The problem is, Bob, is that there's this elephant in the room and most show hosts aren't going to talk about it. And I think that is very disingenuous and dishonest. And I also think that this is a problem. There is certainly a problem in the community with con artists, grifters, scammers, fake people with fake educations, telling fake stories to make money. And I believe that all of those people should be cut from the community like a cancer. And the problem really is, or part of this problem really stems from the fact that most of the show hosts that cover these topics play ball because they want the clicks, they want the views. So they play ball with the scammers. They don't talk about the elephant in the room. And as far as I'm concerned, you cannot solve a problem if you don't acknowledge it and talk about it. And sure, I'm sure there's some show hosts who do cover some of these things. But by and large, what I see is them playing ball. Let's play along with these con artists and grifters because we'll get a lot more views if we play along than if we call them out. I don't think that it is healthy to ignore a bunch of con artists, scammers, and grifters and, fake fraud con men. I don't think it's a wise idea to ignore that elephant in the room and not address it. I don't know. I haven't heard that. Daryl Neely is about to face charges about burning down his own house last week. Well, I haven't heard anything about that. I have not heard anything about that. Comp Lizard says, after watching it, me can't understand how anyone in the UFO community can still trust in any Elizondo disclosure BS. Yeah. Mike Gambelli says, Church loves the commercialism in his space, that's for sure. Can't set the bar any lower, right? Yeah. I mean, it is what it is, right? Randall Hill says, it's not my fault. I do my best to schedule the guests and be clear in my communications. Like, I don't think I could have been any clearer. Tuesday at 7 p.m., and I knew that we were both on the same time zone. For all I know, he traveled to another time zone and got the times messed up. But, I don't really know what happened, so I apologize. Certainly not my intention to tell everybody we've got this big guest everybody wants to hear from, and then the guest isn't here. Yeah. I'm not sure. How does Jimmy still allow him on his show? I'm not sure who you mean. Elizondo, do you mean? Letting Elizondo on a show? He's one of those people. Lincoln Liar asked John about the wood chipper. Hilarious. Grill tells the same. Oh, yes, I've heard that wood chipper story. Yeah. Earthlings Unlimited says Warner's an interesting guy worth waiting for. I agree, but we've been waiting for an hour and 7 minutes now, so it doesn't look like it's going to happen. And my sincere apologies for that. Right? We'll call this a part one. All right. Picks. You could trust the CIA. I don't. Pix says not every person has worked at the CIA is a spook, B, a traitor, C, read in on squat, or D, necessarily doing bad things. Does the CIA need a complete rework? Absolutely. Listen, Pix, the CIA dosed people with LSD without their knowledge or consent. They did that. And I can think of 100 other projects that the CIA did that was dirty. I don't trust them, and I never will. Sorry. And listen, I understand the need for an intelligence gathering organization in our country, but they seem to exist outside of any laws or any sense of morality, ethics, or decency. So, yeah, sorry, I don't trust CIA people. Based on their history, I don't see why I should have to. That one time I was abducted by aliens is here. Thanks very much for being here. Good to see you. Uh, yeah, remember what I said yesterday right before the show, guys? Yeah, this is, I don't know what happened. Hopefully he's okay. I'm gonna reach out to him later tonight, make sure he's okay. Old Nazani Scara says your channel and content are amazing, dude. Love it. Well, thank you for being here. Yeah, unidentified S4 says you can't trust an agency that screws the people. I agree. Scott Brown says I'm retiring my UFO hat. Well, let me get the last interview, Scott. You're not. Come on, you'll be back. Maybe you just need a break. Scott Brown is a good researcher, great show host. UFOs Classified with Erica Lukes saying he's hanging up his UFO hat. I hope not. Randall Hill says you can't arrest or charge anyone in the CIA with anything. Yeah, and apparently they were heavily involved or steeped in, or at least there's rumors that they were involved in stuff with this Epstein Island, right? You have been warned, people, by that one time I was abducted by aliens. Jamie and Brianna says, like this effing video right now. Yes, please do like, comment, subscribe, and share. Again, I apologize for the no-show guest. I've never had this happen. I don't know what that's about. So some folk are combative all the time. Geez. Yeah. The CIA is indeed unaccountable. No arguments. Yeah. So listen, folks, we've been waiting for the guest for an hour and 10 minutes. I think, I did my part tonight. I'm sorry. Again, I apologize. My apologies for this. But I always tell you this. You get the show here, warts and all. This was a big wart. No guest arriving to do the interview. I'll reach out to him later. I'll keep you guys informed about what happened. Hopefully, we'll be able to reschedule. We'll consider this part one. You know what I'll do? I'm going to do that right now. I'm going to retitle tonight's video part one. I mentioned to him that if he just changed his mind or something and he doesn't want to do it, that he could let me know he doesn't want to do it, and I will mark this video private. But I don't know if that's the case. I'll just put part one, and hopefully there'll be a part two where John is able to make it. And like I said, I keep apologizing. I don't know what else to do. I never heard that before. I thought they were really against the hippie revolution. But Randall Hill says CIA started the hippie revolution because they didn't like the culture, which was Christian. So they made a counterculture to stop Christianity, because I hate Christianity, CIA, high-level occultists. Yeah, Unidentified says we still had fun. Yeah, I'm glad you had fun. This is a nail biter. I'm like, he's not here. Play another bumper. He's not here. Do some background. Talk for a while. Try to fill some time. I'm glad you had fun, Anthony, right? Rat Wolf says, I am behind, but looking forward to a Carson expose. Yeah. Complizzard, what do you know about the underwater Area 51? There is underwater naval research centers. I believe isn't it in Hawaii, Complizzard? I have a folder of stuff about that. Maybe we'll follow that. We'll cover that on a future show. Space Exposure said Steven's laugh makes Nelson from The Simpsons jealous. Yeah, I get that a lot. Never knew that people would enjoy my laugh so much until I did a show. And it's interesting that in the midnight hour, I didn't laugh very much, or I edited out the laughs. If I had known, I would have leave them all in. Yes, you are absolutely right. Red Storm 1 says the CIA is responsible for creating Charles Manson as well as Ted Kaczynski. Absolutely right. Absolutely right. Mike Gambelli says you're a fantastic guest, Stephen. Well, I'm pulling double duty today. Brando says that was a great cover. Yeah, I think she did a great job on it. Bobby Dogstone says Age of Aquarius was a CIA psyop. Yeah, Unidentified loves chilling with the crew. And, I want to apologize to Anthony because somebody told me that Anthony was just muting people in the live chat. He's a moderator here. That he was just muting people in the live chat that he disagreed with. Turns out that's not the case. I don't know what was happening that night. There was all kinds of drama in the live chat that night. I'm going to have to review the live chat and try to figure it out. But then I realized that we had to cut a portion of that show and the live chat is gone. So I don't know what happened. I apologize, Anthony. Anthony and I talked to him, and he understands. Like he's not going to just mute or block people that he disagrees with, right? The CIA flooded the country with drugs. Yeah. Can you say crack cocaine, Anthony? Yeah. Can you say Iran Contra? Yeah, let's just sell cocaine and buy guns for these freedom fighters that we want to overthrow a government we don't like. Bobby Dogstone says Stanley Kubrick filmed the moon landing. Oops, wrong show. Yeah, you're a little late for that one, right? A little late. Old Nazanin Scara says, how about interviewing Joseph P. Farrell? We were going to do that. And I talked to him once, and then we never got it nailed down. So I'm going to reach out to him this week because I have sincerely enjoyed it. I got a chance to catch up on Dark Journalist show recently, and I have incredibly and sincerely enjoyed Dark Journalist talks with Joseph P. Farrell of a more recent nature, right? He's been doing some guest appearances on Dark Journalist. I think very interesting guy. He's got some very interesting research, and I'd love to hear more about. Again, it ties into tonight's show, Nazis and UFOs and all that kind of stuff. Joseph P. Farrell is very, very very, very knowledgeable about those subjects. Earthling Unlimited wants to know, should you interview me? We're going to wrap things up here or very, very shortly. Yeah. Unidentified S Forces. Dark Journalist is very interesting. Randall Hill says, I got blocked on GoofOn, but I talked to Rich and he unblocked me, so I don't know what I did, but I say a lot of weird stuff and talk a lot. Yeah. Gobstopper says, when I do your laugh with friends, they love it. You're famous for your laugh, Steve, man. There's worse things to be famous for, I guess. Yes, I want to ask that too. Joseph Farrell, what he thinks was over the Battle of Los Angeles. Yeah. Mike Gambelli wants to revisit Angeli Space Mountain, or was that Griff stamped out? Yeah, I think that's pretty much like a balloon that got all the air left out of it. Mike Gambelli. I think that story's over. And Heiko Juro says the CIA is the intelligence service of an empire. Empires want to control the world. Throughout its history, the CIA has been a destroyer of leftist, anti-imperialistic governments around the world. Yeah. The Watcher says, love Dr. Joseph P. Farrell's Guys of Death Star site. Yeah, I like it too, actually. And I've got a couple of his books. I've read a couple of his books, but then I realized that he's written a lot of books. And there's a new one out. So I'm planning on reading that. Maybe I'll do a review of that, or maybe I'll ask him to come here. Oh, and Neely is already facing 13 years, so he burns down his house. Yeah, not a smart idea. He's going to be facing 20 because they'll add arson charges to that, right? Victorious Eagle Andro. DJ brings some interesting research, but also a lot of woo nonsense like Gigi Young. Yeah, I thought it was a little hypocritical of him, honestly, to go against woo people like Corey Good, but have Gigi Young. But I get it. Gigi Young is like a real nice girl, and she's not hurting anybody, near as I could tell. And you lose your objectivity when you begin to like somebody. So maybe he, they're friends. He lost his... No, see, it depends on what you like. Hey Loss says, dark journalist and Gigi Young, they're on top of YouTube esotericism. Yeah, so some people like Gigi Young. I don't blame him for hosting her. I'd host her, right? Anjali is on Zeta Reticuli now. Consulting with aliens. Yeah, maybe. Old Nazaskara says, yes, love the Guys of Community, been a member for some time. Good for you. I appreciate that you support good creators. And just a note, there's a few ways to support us. You could join our Patreon for as little as $1 a month. You could send a PayPal donation. Instructions on how to do that are in the live chat. Are in the instructions for how to send a PayPal donation are in the About section of our video here. Just a note that you can send a super chat while we're broadcasting live, like right now. But if you're listening to a replay or catching a replay, you should know you can always send a PayPal donation, and instructions to do that are in the live chat. I also want to remind our audio podcast listeners that if you're listening in audio podcast land, you're missing half the fun. Go on over to YouTube. Put Truthseekers, one word, in the search bar. Look for me, Stephen Cambian, the guy with the sunglasses. Smash that subscribe button, smash the notification bell, and come here and be a part of our interactive live chat, live broadcast. That is part of the fun here. We want you to experience that. And you, if you're a fan of the show listening in audio podcast land, you will enjoy coming here during the live broadcasts. You can ask questions, comments. We always have a great audience here in the live chat conversing about the topics we're discussing, or any topics really. I invite you, go on over to YouTube, look for Truthseekers in the search bar. It's very easy to find us. We should be the first thing that pops up, me with the sunglasses. Hit the subscribe button. We need a bigger bullhorn here. There you go. Collie Armstrong is the MVP super chatter of the night with another kind and generous 99-cent super sticker, right? Thank you for your kindness, your generosity, and your support, Collie Armstrong. Continuing, multiple super chat supporter of the show. Thank you for your kindness, your generosity, and your continued support of the show. It is much, much appreciated. I love supporters of the show, but I love continuing supporters of the show, because it's one thing to throw a couple bucks in my hat once, but for the people that keep doing it, you help keep the show going. I also want to remind everybody that there's one other way that you can really help us with the show, and that is to like, comment, subscribe, and share these videos. Share them on your social media. Send some of these videos links to your friends. Send our channel link to your friends and ask them to subscribe. If you like this content, chances are some of your friends into this weird stuff would like our weird and wacky show too. And it really does help us if you comment, like, and share these videos, and also comment. Leave a comment. I pin my favorite comment from every show. I've been a little lazy about doing that lately. I'm going to work on that later tonight after we end our broadcast here. So thank you all for commenting. Thank you all for liking the video. Thank you all for sharing, and share these things on your social media, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, wherever you can, because it helps us get additional clicks and views, and it helps more people find us. So just as important as throwing a couple of bucks in our hat is liking, commenting, subscribing, sharing. The YouTube algorithm loves engagement. And it's interesting that YouTube has recently killed our dislikes. You can't see dislikes anymore. Look at that. With Nazascara with the kind and generous. I keep on forgetting what that is, and you have done that several times. So thank you for your kindness, your generosity, and your support. Is that Netherlands dollars? I think that it is. Yes. It's Norwegian krone. So thank you. It's awesome to me that somebody in Norwegia can send me Norwegian krones. Thank you for your kindness, your generosity, and your support of the show. It warms my heart. I love it that there's people just all over the world just throwing a couple of bucks in my hat. It is like a worldwide busking phenomenon, and it really does help keep the show going. You help us to keep the lights on here. Every time you throw a couple of bucks in our hat, keep us working here on the show. Thank you for your kindness, your generosity, and your support. Old Nazascara, continuing supporter of the show. Very much appreciate it. Thank you for your kindness. Space Exposure says, great guest list show, Stephen. Hey, things happen. All right? Things happen. All right? You got to roll with the punches, baby. Right? And you know what I will say is I'm feeling under the weather again, but I'm still looking good, smelling good, and feeling as good as I can given current circumstances. So I'm rolling with the punches, baby. That's all you can do. So I want to thank each and every one of you for joining us. And for the final time, apologize for having a guest that for one reason or another couldn't show up to do the interview that we had planned and scheduled. My apologies for that. We'll see if we can't do something about fixing that. I'm not quite sure what happened, but I'll keep you guys informed. I'm sure he will reply to me eventually and let me know. But it is what it is, friends. Like I said, you get to show warts and all. It's a live show. These things happen. Going forward, I'm going to make a plan. You know, you learn from your experiences. I've never had this happen. I've had a guest be 10 minutes late. Oh no, actually, one other person did this. I filled time for an hour for a guest, and then he kept on saying 20 more minutes, 20 more minutes, 20 more minutes. And after about an hour, I gave up. So I should have had a plan in place in case this happens again, right? So I'm going to figure out a plan where we can just change the title, change the thumbnail, and roll on with a different show. I'm going to get some other shows with well-researched information about certain topics in folders. If this happens again, we'll be able to roll with the punches much better. You live and you learn, friends. I'm just rolling with the punches, baby. That's what we're doing here. So I want to thank each and every one of you for joining us. It has been my pleasure. Oh, look at that. We've got another one I missed. Sorry about that. Arctic Zun, another person from Norway. Amazing. We've got two kind and generous supporters from Norway. Kind and generous 55 Norwegian crowns. And Arctic Sun says, praise it. Well, thank you very much for your kindness, your generosity, and your support of the show. And thank you all tonight, you kind and generous supporters, for helping us, like Arctic Sun says, to praise the cash, friends.
Praise the cash, praise the cash, praise the cash. Praise the cash, praise the cash, praise the cash. Thank you for your kindness. Thank you for your generosity. Praise the cash, praise the cash, praise the cash. You're watching Truthseekers. Praise the cash, praise the cash.
All right, friends. So thank you all for your kindness, your generosity, and your support. It is much appreciated. Thanks to the entire audience for being here. Much appreciated. So I am going to bounce on out of here. I will keep you posted. Maybe we'll be able to reschedule and do a part 2 that includes the actual interview. I'm hopeful that we'll be able to do that. So thanks to all who joined us tonight. Thanks to you kind and generous benefactors. Thanks to you Patreon supporters who are helping keep the show going and putting a few bucks in my pocket. It's Christmas, right? My son is going to make me poor. He wants a Nintendo Switch and all this other stuff. I'm trying to figure out the money. I feel like that meme, right, from Tiger King. I'm never going to financially recover from this. And he keeps asking for more stuff. And me and my wife are trying to say, Nintendo Switch is a lot of money. My wife does an amazing job every year on their Christmas, though. So I'm sure that there's going to be another truck. My kids have truckloads of toys. The whole house is full. There's toys everywhere. There's going to be another truckload of toys here on Christmas. And then my wife's family she has 6 brothers and sisters, and they all have kids. So they're all going to be giving gifts. There's going to be another tractor trailer load of toys for me to deal with come Christmas morning. But hey, they're only kids once, so I'm happy that we can make them. I'm happy that my wife and I can give them such an amazing Christmas. And thank you to some of you donators who are helping me come up with some extra money to give them a very good Christmas. Until next time, friends, my name is Stephen Cambion. Good night, and God bless all of you.